AsianArt.com and P.O. Combs Asian Art in Gloucester, Massachusetts. And today is Friday, December 11th, 2020, and this is our weekly video. This is our weekly look back at last week's eBay auction results, what's happening over at Bonhams. There's some news from there this week. Sotheby's, the global member pages, CATAWIKI, eBay, and take a look at some things that are coming up that are closing in the next few days. For this time of the year, there's a surprising amount going on. eBay's gotten a little quiet because a lot of sellers on here, as I mentioned last week, don't want to have things on the internet selling and closing really close to the holiday season because shipping is such a problem. And people want to get away. People really want to get away, especially with the last year. It's just been, it's crazy and getting crazier. And it doesn't look like any of the craziness is going to end anytime early in 2021 either. So settle in, do some buying, enjoy collecting Chinese art, and let the world sort itself out, I guess, is the rule of thumb here. At any rate, that's how I'm looking at it. But one of the things I wanted to mention was that, and I heard from a few people this week, we were dealing with the same problem. Bonhams had a problem with their website this week, and it wasn't posting the auction calendar. You couldn't get to the page. A lot of you were getting 1020 error messages, blocked by Cloudflare and this sort of thing. I've talked to them twice this week about it, wondering what the heck is going on, because we were trying to update their page on the global member side, and we couldn't pull in anything. Everything was blocked. There was a Cloudflare. It's a service that protects websites issue, and I don't know what's going on. They may have had some sort of hacking attempt on them, but they now, when I went back just recently, had to go through a CAPTCHA, as they call it, verification thing to get onto the site. And I don't know what's going on, but it's something that they're tending to, so be a little patient with it. But the reason we were looking was that they have a sale coming up in just a few days in Los Angeles. It's this one, and we have posted the catalog. It's over on in the reference section right here. It's the first catalog up here. We've got it up, and we went over to the update page, and we were able to get a lot of the stuff on here in between ins and outs when the site was and wasn't working. There's some very good Republic pieces in here. There's some nice general porcelains. There's quite a few good sized lots. And as you know, Bonhams is not a heavy estimate maker. They go fairly easy on the estimates a lot of the time when they want to really move some material along. And I think this is one of those sales. There's some good Japanese stuff, some good Suzuribakos, some nice screens. There's some pretty good pieces of Satsuma, some nice sword fittings and so forth, and more jades, furniture, and all that. So you want to check it out. That isn't the whole sale. It's actually a fairly large sale. I think it's 700 or 800 lots. It's being sold in two parts on the 14th, part 1 and part 2, and that sort of thing. And if you pull up, hit the little QB button down here, you can scroll through it pretty quickly and get an idea what's in this auction. And as you can see, as is typical with Bonhams, they tend to put up pretty generous lots at times, and they also tend to go with very easy estimates. They don't kill their stuff with estimates. And there's also some very nice Japanese material in here, particularly some very good Netskis. If you're a Netski buyer, check it out. But there's also some good jade lots and so forth. And you do have time. And I'm encouraging people to look into this because their site was so messed up this week. I think a lot of people might have gotten frustrated and given up trying to get information and do anything with this sale. There's a chance of that. So you want to get in there and cover this sale if you're a dealer especially. And if you're a collector and you like Republican things, in particular, there's some rather fine Republican examples in here, okay? And the other thing I wanted to mention was earlier this week I heard from a guy that I knew years ago. We used to be in the Boston area, worked with a very good gallery in Boston, is now running Revere Auctions out in the Midwest, in St. Paul, Minnesota. And he called to see if we had noticed this, and I hadn't noticed it, and I got it up on the website earlier this week. Was this really nice Ching for Milrose hexagonal vase. It's a pretty big one. This thing was 15 inches tall, had a line around the base, but boy, this was a nice looking vase, and he had it dated right, late 18th, early 19th century. Really, really fine example. I hope you saw it. We did put it on the front page in the featured section because I just thought this thing was so pretty. Beautifully done. That sold today for $5,500. All right. I think that was a pretty reasonable price. And the other thing that he had was this big basin. He estimated it very reasonably because he thought the chips and nicks might hold it back a little bit. I thought it was wonderful. $1,000 to $2,000 estimate, sold for $13,000 just a short time ago. closed, according to this, it closed 55 lots ago at the time I'm recording this on Friday. So I was glad to see that. He's a good guy. Revere Auctions is on the they are on the report card. They get a B, reliable, very approachable. Another auction house you can probably get in touch with, and I think you'll have good luck with them. They like Tremont in Boston, Tremont Auctions. They're good to talk to too. So you want to check these guys out. They're smaller auction houses, but they're working hard and they do a good job. All right, and this was their page of some of their other lots. They had some things that sell, some things that didn't sell, and so forth. But overall, it was a pretty good-looking sale. And I noticed here that some of these traveling shrines went really reasonably. $200, $300, $200, that kind of thing. So this is the kind of sale you want to go in and you just want to carpet bomb the place with bids. Just leave bids. Just go right through it and see how you come out on the other end, because I think if you did that with this sale, you might have hooked yourself up with some pretty good lots. All right, now moseying on over. Live Auctioneers had a bunch of updates this week. We updated this page 3 times this week, 3 times in the last. We updated it Saturday, and then we updated it, did a small update, but we didn't change the date of the last update. And then we did it early yesterday, and we did it again today because so much came and went over the course of this week. There's still a lot on here, though. We added a whole bunch back, Coronari auctions. Let's see, they're down here at the bottom. They have a sale coming up. Here it is. These guys are over in Belgium or the Netherlands. Let me check. I can never remember where they're in Belgium, right? Okay. And they've got some nice stuff, some good general lines of affordable things. Most of the lots are under $3,000 or $4,000, but there's a lot of content. There's a lot of material here to look at. And this is one of the things they have that just caught my eye. I love it. If you're a Japanese buyer, you want to take a look at this. This is a great lacquered paper mache relief plaque. I just think this is wonderful. I love the face on the guy. The work is really good. It's got a little damage right there, but who cares? This thing is cool looking. And it's estimated fairly reasonably at 300 to 600 euros. And it's big, 48 centimeters by 38 centimeters. So it's roughly 18 inches by about 14 inches. And that sale is coming up on December 17th. You got about a week. All right, and the other thing is that this sale closes over the weekend. Close that thing out of there because I didn't log in. This is the Codner sale down in Florida. We mentioned it last week. It closes tomorrow, and in it they have this terrific side-handle chocolate pot, 18th century, and some other things. I'm just showing you that again to remind you of the sale because they have a lot of good Chinese export in that auction, and it's all over on the global member pages. So you want to look at that. All right, and Sotheby's has a sale up online over in Hong Kong. Bunch of good things in here, and a lot of the stuff in here is early, but it's not horrifyingly overestimated or horrifyingly expensive. It's fairly buyable, so if you're in that part of the world or you have an arrangement to get things picked up there or shipped from Hong Kong, you want to look into that sale, and that's on the Sotheby's page. We did change. We're playing around with different layouts on the pages for items because some folks thought the little boxes were too much. Some people like this layout better. So whichever you prefer, let us know because it's fairly easy for us to change the configurations to suit everybody. All right, and that's the Sotheby's page itself. Okay, now, what happened over on eBay last week? Not a lot. There were a number of things. CATAWIKI and eBay had quite a few things, but no big blockbusters this week, but they had some interesting prices, and there were some good buys. For those of you that were around and placing some bids, you probably got yourself hooked up with some good buys. One of the things I wanted to mention, though, before we get into the prices, the results and so forth, is this. I've gotten 5 inquiries about this unique Chinese Qinlong gilt bronze wine cup and stand flower handles. It's got 2 bids. I'm not sure it actually has competitive bids. This may be somebody helping the seller. I don't know. But in any event, this is not a Qinlong anything. It is a piece of junk. It is not old. And if you look at it carefully, you'll see right away that the work on it is just horrifying, to put it mildly. Here's a picture of the bottom. Yeah, it's gold and black, and the colors of the rich. But this is just not an old thing at all. This is just a horrible piece of junk. And if you've got a bid on it, withdraw it, run away, run away, run away. Don't get involved with that. But because it was up to that amount of money, sometimes sellers have been known to push prices up to high levels to get attention, thinking, well, if it's up to $5,000, maybe it's worth it. And It doesn't often happen that way. So you want to be careful of, high opening bids with one bid after 5 or 6 days and no competing bids. It's usually a sign there's something wrong. Okay, so be very careful about that. But this is not a good thing. It's not Chinlung. It's, my shoes are probably older. Okay, so stay away from it. Now, over on CATAWIKI last week, there were some nice buys. This was one of them. This was a really fine Chinese export 18th century Nanking cargo terrine that had been sold by Spinks at one. I think it was Spinks. I forget. Pretty sure it was one of the big. Spinks certificate had been involved with this. It was a very, very nice Nanking cargo terrine, and I think it went pretty reasonable, 650 euros, but this was a really fine one. This was a really nice terrine, beautifully decorated, cafe rim on it, and 650 euros. You can't go wrong with it. That was a good price. That was a good buy. All right, and then over here for this charming little Ming deer in the woods. These are typical jarlets. I've known people that have actually collected just these little blue and white jarlets with the Wanli deer pattern and so forth on them. These were extremely popular little oil jars, and some of them are much better than others. They come in a whole wide range of qualities. This is rather a good one. It's nicely defined. I like the way they did the spotted deer, and I like the outlining of the blue and so forth on it. And I think it went pretty reasonably, 175 euros. It was a nice example, and these are terrific. These used to turn up a lot more. Around 30 years ago, antique shops had these all the time, always tucked away because so many were exported to Europe, and then a lot of them were brought to the United States because they were small. If you went to Europe, you bought one, you could just put it in your bag and just bring it home. And lots of them turned up in the United States at one point, especially in the eastern part of the United States, New England. We used to see these all the time in shops. All right, and anyway, that was a fair price, 175 euros. And then over to this very, very nice, again, another Chinlung terrine with this wonderful, this was sort of a stock pattern. I've talked about this pattern before. It turns up often on dinner services that were shipped to, for some reason, it seems to me that a lot of them were shipped to France and quite a few to England in this exact pattern. And it is very much in the Chinese taste with interior scenes and so forth. This was quite nice. As a matter of fact, the first service of this I'd ever seen belonged to my own family. My mom had a huge dinner service in this pattern, and it was quite nice. And we actually got to eat off of it once in a while, if we were really good. And but this was a really, really nice example, and it ended up selling for 550 euros, which I think is very reasonable. I think that was also, for a big serving piece, it was a good buy. And these were always particularly well decorated. They were nice to buy. All right, now over here to this. This was a dandy little buy. This was an early 18th century little cup. Nicely decorated. It went for 38 euros. Who says you can't buy early things reasonably? This was a nice little cup. It wasn't terribly big, but beautifully decorated. Early 18th century, probably Kangxi period. Had a good-looking foot rim on it, all nicely done. And I suspect somebody just threw a bid on this and walked away. It opened at $16 and it closed at 38. I can't see anything wrong with it, and I think it went for about 150 bucks under the money. All right, and then over here to this was also on CATAWIKI. It was this very nice European market, often for the Dutch and the Northern European market, Netherlands, cup and saucer set matching. Nice quality. These were such good quality, beautifully painted with the mirroring birds over the little scholar's studio. Just love this. And I know someone's going to text me and they're going to know the exact name of this pattern. I used to know it and I forgot it. Okay, sorry. But this was a lovely set, and both looked to be in very nice condition, and both went for 130 euros. I think that was also a very, very good buy. All right, a very good buy. And then onto this platter. This wasn't a big dinner platter. It was like 7 or 8 inches wide, but it was a very nicely done one with a shaped rim for the European market, with the ascending pheasant or peacock. I think it's a pheasant at this point, and one on the ground, and this nice rocky outcropping and the flowers and so forth. And somebody picked this up, I think, pretty reasonably too. 135 euros for a good piece of Chinlung porcelain. All right, it had a nick on the back of one of the corners or something, some trivial thing, but good example, and very tightly painted and decorated, and it was a good buy. And how big was it exactly? 27 centimeters, so it was around 8 inches or so in width. All right, 8 inches wide, for 24 inches across. From here to here. But a nice example, and they did have a lot of good pictures with it. Just so you know, CATAWIKI does allow for a lot of good photographs, and this fellow included a lot of photographs. There's that chip. See, the chip was on the back. All right, and I don't think it really matters much. If it bothers you to get a ceramic guy to repair it, it wouldn't be much because there's no decorating to do. You just fill it in and glaze it. All right, nice looking thing. That's the Chinese Amari dish. This was around an 8-inch dish or so. It wasn't a big one. As you know, they did make these in charges. This particular pattern often turns up, not often, but they do turn up in 15 to 18-inch plates, some of them even a little bigger. But this was a smaller one, but it was extremely well decorated. It was very, very well decorated. Had really, really nice deep cobalt. The gilding on it was good. There's a little wear to the gilding around the outside, but overall, it's a good-looking dish. And I think it went pretty reasonably, 201 euros. And this was a Kangxi example. This was not Qianlong. It was obviously a Kangxi dish done in that pattern. This is very similar to the pattern that the Japanese adopted, of course, when they began making them. But this was the source, and just beautifully done. And I think 201 euros for an elegant little plate like that with no cracks or repairs was a good buy. And then over here to this, the crookedly shot reticulated tray, under tray. There was probably another bowl or something that went in this, but it has the reticulated bamboo sections going around the outside. And then this beautiful famille rose scene with overglazed blue rocks and peacocks coming down and lush blossoming flowers and so forth. It's unfortunate that he shot the thing on an angle like that, but I guess he didn't have a stand handy. Use stands. Stands are great. And here's a better shot of it. But you notice the quality of the colors is very, very good. And none of these reticulated areas are broken. Always check these very carefully, front and back, for breaks, because they often get broken. And on the front, because the area is so small, somebody can touch it up and fix it, and you don't really notice it. But if you look at the back, you can always spot it, because the backs of these tend to be undecorated, just plain white. Let's see if they show the back. Oh, no, that one has a little decoration on it, too. But at any rate, you check it carefully for those breaks front and back then on this type. But often they don't decorate back here, so you can just look and you'll spot the repair right away if it has one. And this went pretty reasonably, too. 265 euros. Can't beat that, because that's a sort of a complicated plate, hard to make, how to get all these little reticulated open areas in, and then very finely glazed. You can see the glaze on this was quite superb, and I think that was a good buy. And then the Guangzhou Dragon and Phoenix plate. These turn up as in 1920s examples, and they turn up as period examples. They come in all shapes and sizes and ages, because it was very popular during the Guangzhou period. And after the Guangzhou period ended, they began making huge dinner service tea sets for these things and so forth that were not Marken period, but very, very well painted, very well decorated. They just weren't that old. But this one, it looked like a pretty good one to me. And it ended up selling at the end. It sold for $3,000, which didn't surprise me too much. I saw another one last week that was very similar. There was a Republic one, and I think it sold for about $600 or $700 or something. Okay, and then over here to this, the Wanli charger that we featured. I think this was also a very good buy. It was a 38-centimeter charger. This was a big one, Wanli period. Well-known pattern with the trees and the rows of trees and so forth, and this outer edge of the ascending phoenixes coming in among the chrysanthemums. And this sold for 500 euros on the nose. All right, and again, it's a charger. This is a big plate, and it was in overall very, very good condition. So, $700 for one of these in good shape isn't that bad, because they often sell for, they can bring 11 to 1,500 sometimes, and a really dark blue one can bring double that. But that's still a good-looking one. And then over on eBay, what happened was that they had this. Somebody put up this. This was Young Shi put this up. It was a set of 3 pairs of rank badges. And these are all sort of late Qing, early Republic examples, but perfectly nice, sort of good-looking. And they were in good condition. The silk was in good condition. Not terribly finely woven. As you can see here, the animal is, he looks almost like a little bit like a cartoon kitty cat. But the work overall was fine. And as a group of them, I think they're interesting. That's the thing that caught my eye, was I like the idea of the different badges, 3 different ranks, civilian ranks and so forth, and nicely done. Nicely done. And they went, all 6 of them went for $166, or they went for about $150 a piece, which is fine. which is perfectly fine for that. If you broke them up, you'd probably get $250 to $300 each for them singly. So that may happen. All right, and then on to the Gerardo thing. I put a note about this at the top of the newsletter page last week, and I included it, but I put a note in saying that this is Japanese Gerardo, and the seller had it listed as Chinese, which it clearly isn't. It's absolutely a Gerardo piece, 20th century Gerardo, but nicely done. Not really big. It was around 9 inches tall. I thought it was very, very good. This is Hess Fine Auctions, and they have a guy that identifies their stuff, and he's usually not too bad, but this time he really missed it, because this is clearly a piece of Gerardo. They're the only people that made these, and it went for $355, which is probably okay, but it's a bit of a complicated type, so if it had been marked Gerardo, it might have brought $500 to $700 or something like that, because it was a rather nice one. And then over here to this, the Armorial Chinese export teapot. A nice one. This the gilding on it was in good shape, because on these, when they have this much gilding, you always want to check, see if it's all worn off or chipped out or something like that. The gilding around the neck looks good. A lot of this is stock pattern, and then they apply the armorial crest to it, which they did here. And here's another view of it. Looks like nice shape. It's got a good shine to it. And somebody picked this up pretty reasonably too, $197 for a mid-18th century armorial teapot. All right, as I've said a million times, leave a bid, because you never know. Because if this pot had sold for $450 to $550, I would have said that's a reasonable price for that. $197 for an armorial teapot is a very, very good buy, very reasonable. And then on to this, the armorial charger. This seller, there's another seller that shoots his pictures. I don't think it's the same guy. He over sharpens and he overlights his pictures, because I think maybe his monitor isn't calibrated or something. If you use your cameras to shoot objects for eBay, calibrate your white balance your camera and calibrate, please, your monitor. So when you put the piece up there, it looks right. It looks like it does when you're holding it. If the photos you take when you hold the object in your hands don't look like what's on your screen, either your camera is wrong, set up wrong, or your monitor is set up wrong. All right, it doesn't hurt to put it on a couple of different monitors to see if it looks different. Because what happens is people get these pictures, they don't look right on their monitor, and they put them into Adobe Photoshop or some other photo program to try to correct them, and you end up with this very sharp, very harsh looking, and everybody knows what it is, but it doesn't come off as beautifully as it could. It sold for $710, which is okay. I think these things would do better. But be very careful when you shoot pictures. The camera, when you take images out of your cameras, whether it's in your phone or on a regular camera, when you put the card in and look at it on your screen, it should look just like the piece does in real life pretty much. Okay, it shouldn't have tonal differences, color differences. There shouldn't be yellows when it's really white. If you have any of those issues, it's because your screen isn't calibrated properly or your camera is not white balanced. And automatic white balancing on interior tabletop photography is a tough trick because it doesn't work terribly well. Automatic white balances on digital cameras really only works best in outdoor shooting. Okay. Now on to this, the Japanese plate. This was sold by the Ceramics and Collectibles guys, Shangri-La. Nice looking plate, late 18th, early 19th century. But I love the clamshell with the cloud and then the mystical vision of the palace rising up above it. And I love how they did the vine and flower borders. Very unusual looking, almost looks French, but very tasteful. I like that a lot. And this ended up selling for just $108. That was a good buy. And it wasn't a big plate. It was about 7.5 inches or so in diameter, but it was very nice. And then on to this big boy. This was a great buy. I don't know who bought this, but somebody got one heck of a piece of Nanking porcelain. This type of Nanking with this border is the best type of Nanking you can get. All right, and if you scroll through here, there's the crest. If you look at how tight this is, it almost looks like it was done with a machine. But you have these extremely fine spearhead borders going around the side, this extremely fine filled-in lattice. This is an old one. Here's a picture of the back. All right, there's the foot rim on it. Just absolutely superbly well done. And it went for just $364. It was a good size. I think it was about 14 or 15 inches or something. Yeah, 40 centimeters. So it was around 15 and a half, 16 inches wide, something like that. That was a good buy. Because Nanking, lower grade Nanking, when you look at it, and you've all seen them, especially when they tried to do them in the late 19th century, these little sort of egg and dart or cross borders, crisscross borders, not egg and dart, but crisscross borders. By the 19th century, they just turned into little rows of looked like hanging beads, like dots, just dit coming down the outside. Those are the lower quality ones. Those are the ones that they were doing quickly in mass production, and rather than gently painting in all the little details, they just sort of dab them on. But this was a particularly nice one, and I think $364 for it was very reasonable for a piece of work of that high quality. And the same thing goes for this Fitzhugh hot water plate. It was a bigger one. It was about 15 inches in diameter. Overall, it was in very, very good condition. All the interior details are nicely done on it. It wasn't chipped. It didn't have any damage that I'm aware of. Here's a picture of the bottom. Very typical for these nice late 18th century hot water dishes. It also went for $260. 17.2 inches in width. Excuse me, there's the diameter. I thought it was a little smaller than that. 17 inches. That's a big hot water plate for $260. That was an absolute steal. Absolutely, because we've seen the small, just the regular sort of familial rose mandarin or a rose medallion hot water plates or things of that era, of that type that are later, 1840s, 1850s, that bring this so much and even more at times. But that was a superbly well done underglazed blue piece from the late 18th century. All right, and then on to what's coming up. There's a nice piece of Chinese iron that's coming up. This is Tofi One has it over in France, 17th or 18th century. I tend to think it's probably more like the 18th century. But Chinese iron is hard to come by. It's rare, and it's sort of an interesting figure. And then this. If you're a Guangdong Sichuan Jun glazed pottery buyer, I love this. Okay, this is sort of a crude thing, but boy, I love the base. I love how thick the glaze is, the bluish tone of it. It's not particularly big. It's only 6 or so inches tall. It looks like it could be 15 inches, but it's not. It's fairly small. But it's a very nice one. Here's a picture of the base. Here's this really nice piece of provincial Sichuan. I just like it. I just like it a lot. It's up to nothing. It's up to $18. It's got 9 bids. That's a cool thing. You know, if you can pick that up for under 150, 200 bucks, it's a satisfying object. Let's put it that way. I think I like things that have this feeling to them. They look like they have the feeling of being very old, and it's pretty old. It's a 19th century one, but it's reminiscent of Sung pieces and early Ming pieces and so forth. And I like it. I just like that. And then over here to this, the album of paintings that are by Zhang Hui. I looked this guy up. I couldn't find anything on him. But the write-up on this looks pretty good. And these paintings look like they're old paintings. Okay, these are nice-looking old paintings. If you're a Chinese leaf painting buyer, this is something you want to look into. These all look to be well-written. Well-painted, nicely decorated. Here they all are. He came up with the seller somewhere I think maybe a museum or some institution did some research on these because they came up with the artist's name, what he's most well known for. But often artists, especially in the 18th, 19th, well, lots of artists even, not just in those periods, they adopted different names and painting names over their lifetimes. And they were known by this, they were known by that. And they came up with all 3 or 4 for this particular artist. And I Googled and checked around to see who the heck he was, and I couldn't find anything under any of the names. That doesn't mean he didn't exist, because there are indexes that we don't always have access to for images. But this was a nice-looking set of paintings, nice-looking album. It's up to $400. There's 8 of them, and I would, at the minimum, figure, the value of them to be at probably $200 to $300 per leaf. So I think there's some room in here to move if you're looking to buy a nice set of Chinese paintings that have inscriptions. These framed in a group on a wall would be absolutely fabulous. I urge someone to do it and then send me pictures of it. I want to see it. But this is a really lovely chance to buy a whole set of these. I don't know what they'll bring. They close on Sunday. They will be in the newsletter this week, absolutely, and I like them a lot. I just like those. Love these sort of rustic paintings with script. I love that rock. God, I think that's terrific. All right, and the paper looks good and old to my eyes, and hand trimmed and all that. So that's what it is for the week, okay? And check the newsletter when we send it out. If you haven't subscribed yet, sign up for it over on Bidamount.com for the weekly newsletter notice when we update CATAWIKI and eBay. As I said, we've updated the global member pages for the weekend already. We're actually ahead a little bit this week. And we'll be doing looking around for some more things to add to the newsletter page before it goes out later on today. Have a wonderful weekend as always. Enjoy it. I understand, I think it's supposed to rain here tomorrow in the 40s, cold, cool 30s and 40s, and then 50s and sunny on Sunday. So hopefully we'll be able to get out with the dogs and go for a walk on the beach and bug out of the house and get some fresh air. It'd be nice to do. All right, and I hope you all do the same thing. Have a wonderful weekend, as I said, and I'll see you next week. And we're working on a few things, and we'll put them up as soon as they're done. And the new website, they did fix the language problem. I wanted to say that at the beginning. I forgot. We had a problem with the language translator, and the creator of the translator and our web person in the one in India, who we use all the time, have been communicating, and they claim they've got it figured out. And so more on that. All right. Sorry that's taking so long, but we're trying to get it right, and that's just the way technology is. All right, have a great weekend. See you all later. Bye-bye.